Bitcoin bulls are on the charge. They've managed to push prices back into our all-time high consolidation range, above our yearly open and back above multiple levels of key resistance. Today, I want to talk about, is this the time for us to get bullish again? Should we be targeting new all-time highs for Bitcoin? Or is this one massive bear trap? And is Bitcoin about to come down and hit our lower targets down at 69 to 73,000? Stay tuned to find out the answers because I'm going to be covering that on today's video. Firstly, I want to apologize not for not doing a video over the last couple of weeks. I had a family holiday. I've been traveling, still traveling right now, but I said I wanted to get on and just give my latest thoughts on the markets because quite a lot has changed. I mean, sort of 3, 4 weeks ago, we were still down in the low 80s, and obviously now we're in the high 90s. And Bitcoin is really, really starting to get a move on, and the bulls are really starting to go for it. So, yeah, let me try and break it down. Obviously, on the weekly, we can see we're working on our fourth green week. I mean, if this weekly candle closes here or anywhere higher, it's very, very hard to see all-time highs not coming for Bitcoin over the next couple of months. And I think what that might look like could be a extension up towards maybe our sort of 1.618 really from this sort of yearly price action that we've seen so far, from our yearly high to yearly low. Obviously, we put the Fibonacci extension on that, the 1.618 on that, and that gets us up to 130K. So potentially that could be where we're going on the bullish side. That would be about another sort of 32% move from here. That would be pretty nice. And that would also be from the lows down here. If we just get our measuring tools, that would be around a 75% move, which would be a very, very nice return for Bitcoin from its sort of year-to-date lows. So that I'm seeing as a potential scenario. And look, some of the things that are worrying me about, and certainly if that does play out, it's just going to be the sustainability of that move. I mean, in contrast to where we were when we broke 100,000 last year, obviously we had this extremely high volume. We've not seen anything near that sort of volume come in on this price action, and that does lead me to believe that interest is not really there, and there's just not the same amount of power. There's not the same amount of strength in this move. So I think whereas here there was a big on fight between the bulls and the bears, and it took the bears a good couple of months to actually break this level down. I do think here we could get some sort of more quick sort of blow off where we run up very, very high and fast. Bears show up and they're able to push prices down a lot quicker. So I am expecting a fairly quick blow off to this move if we do continue higher. And just to support that argument, we can look at I'll look at the liquidity levels in a moment, but it was the daily exchange volume. We can see that daily exchange volume is still trading down. I hope this is the right one I'm trying to share. It takes a minute sometimes to load. Double check. Yeah, it should be. So just unfortunately very, very slow. But here we go. So the daily exchange volume is just completely falling off a cliff, coming sort of back down to pre-election levels. And for me, it's just not indicative of a healthy market, of a really strong market that is attracting new buyers right now. So that is something we have to bear in mind, when looking at this as a longer term investment. I think the market is not so healthy at these what are very extended prices based on where we've been in the past. Obviously, we've come all the way up from 15 to 16,000 in the bear market lows, and we're currently sort of fighting our way back to 100K. So just from a timing perspective wise, let's let's look at the liquidity heat map for now. And this is what I'm thinking short term. I'm thinking at some point there has to be some sort of pullback, and it could come from much higher, of course. It could just completely moonshot and then sort of come straight back down as quick as it's gone up afterwards, which, like I say, that wouldn't be very healthy. I think quite what would be a healthy thing is for Bitcoin probably to push a bit higher here, get up to around sort of 98 to 99,000. Maybe we then come and target this liquidity just below 96,000 down to about 95,000. So I think liquidity getting swept would be good. If we see some sort of consolidation around, let's call it the sort of low 90s, mid or even mid 90s, above or in between some of these resistance levels, then I think that could set us up for a push higher. I think if we just go up straight from here, this is just not organic. This is just not really looking healthy enough. I mean, to me, it looks like it did back here, but we just don't have the same catalyst now. This was all the election result, which was obviously changing the playing field for crypto from what it had been. And then this just seems to be a sort of counter trend rally, a almost like a bear market rally, because I do think following this breakdown, we've seen a break of market structure. So this is why I'm still very cautious. And at any point, I mean, if we lose this resistance on the weekly close and then start to trade under this week's low next week, then you can build the case for us coming back down and potentially still making new lows this year. So what I'm trying to say is this is the opportunity of maximum return, but also the opportunity, the point of maximum return, but also the point of maximum risk. So, for me, I'm in a couple of short trades here. I'm not going crazy with the size, but I do truly think that we will get some resolution on this over the next couple of days. Either Bitcoin is going to close the week above this resistance and continue its move higher, probably into this trend line around about 101 to 102,000, and then maybe we get that much needed pullback. If not, it's just gonna keep on going and going and going unless bears are able to actually come into the market here and push this down, and then we can actually see this market start to roll over. But we got to talk about our sort of everybody's favorite Bitcoin bull, Michael Saylor. I don't know if he's everybody's favorite right now. I know some people are thinking like the whole centralization, decentralization argument, one entity owning so much of the Bitcoin supply is not necessarily a healthy thing. And I quite agree with that. But this is from last night. Michael Saylor said strategy is doubling their fundraising to raise 84 billion to buy more Bitcoin. I mean, that is an obscene amount of money. That is bigger than the market cap of just about every other cryptocurrency out there, aside from a handful that are in the top 10, like your XRPs and your ETHs. So yeah, that is just an insane amount of money. And for me, it's not really too much of a surprise that Bitcoin from here could go higher because you've got this buyer. It's almost inorganic buyer in the market that is just relentlessly top blasting prices higher. And I say to myself, well, if the market knows there's another 84 billion worth of Bitcoin buyers to come into this market, why are they going to give him a nice, healthy discount for him to be able to make those purchases at? They're just gonna run it higher until he starts buying, and then they're just gonna offload into those buys. So yeah, I mean, I'm actually feeling a lot more bullish after, well, today than I was over the last few days, just because that's massive news. And I'm thinking to myself, like, where the hell is he getting all the funding from? Like, it's just, I mean, I'll have to dig into it a bit more, and I will do a deep dive on Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, but I've been pretty bearish on the MicroStrategy stock. I just feel at some point the whole thing does unravel, but potentially there's one last hurrah for this cycle, and that's going to come from Michael Saylor you know, just on the bid with 84 billion to pump Bitcoin as high as he can before this bull market is maybe all said and done. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. So that's kind of the bullish case, and I've drawn paths on a couple of charts here, which I purposely kept on for this video just to see how they're playing out. So it looks like this path has just been completely accelerated. I was expecting more chop here. It looks like actually we're just getting this push up right away, and potentially we're gonna come up and we're gonna make a new all-time high, touch all-time highs again. That would have on this chart, this is a long-term trend line connecting these highs to the previous bull market highs. Potentially that takes us up to around 113. But like I say, I still think we could get through that, overshoot that up to 130 and then start to roll over. Obviously, if we did come up here and reject, that would be seen as a triple top. So these are both two levels I'll be watching around the sort of 112, 113, and around the 125 to say 130 on the upside. If Bitcoin can manage to reclaim 100,000 and start closing above 100,000, I don't see how it doesn't push higher. But I do think that move will probably be the move to get out of a lot of long exposure. If you have it, that's certainly what I'm going to be doing with some of my longer term spot Bitcoin that I've decided to keep in the market. So actually, we can take this one off. And if I had to do, I guess, more of a bullish path, then this is going to be what it will look like. So it probably means squeezing a bit higher towards 102, coming back down, but staying above the yearly open, staying above key resistance. I think we'd need some sideways consolidation for a little bit. And then I don't think price would look back. I think price would just go straight up here, maybe a small consolidation, and boom, straight up towards the 100 and sort of 30,000-ish level. And I think that would be it. I think that would be probably the way that would be pretty much a vertical parabolic move. And I think from there, that would be the cycle peak. Obviously, when we got up here, people will be, I'm sure, screaming for 200,000, $300,000 Bitcoin, maybe a million Bitcoin. Michael Saylor would be buying enormous amounts. We'd probably get other states progress on that front with states then reporting to buy Bitcoin. Maybe the US government talks about selling some gold to buy Bitcoin. I think this would just be the peak euphoria. Now, for me, it seems very, very odd that we can go from what was peak euphoria back here, which I believe it most definitely was. Even myself, I was way too euphoric. We all were because Trump had come in and it was Bitcoin strategic reserve. For something to top that, I don't really see it, but who knows? I mean, it may well could happen. I think what is more likely, and I've talked about this many times before on the channel, is that we're doing something like this, and actually we're going to reject soon. Obviously, this has gone a little bit higher than I thought, trapping a few bulls above resistance. If that then rejects and we come back down, then potentially this is the way it's going to go. And of course, people will be saying, like, buy the high low, we're going to go to all-time highs, but actually we're unable to get above this high. And this ends up being some larger consolidation pattern with ultimate resolution to the downside. So that is still what I'm thinking is a possible path. Could it be that we do something like this? And it's like a combination of the last path I just shown, where we come up, here and we make some sort of triple top and then come back down and then into the bear market. Absolutely. But I don't see another path where things just completely go vertical up to 200,000, 300,000. I just don't see that happening personally myself, given the situation that we're in right now, which is growth is slowing down. We've just had negative GDP quarter in the US. And then today we've had positive jobs numbers, which shows actually the labor market is still strong. So if you think QT is going to stop in May, or you think we're going to get a surprise rate cut in May, you're probably going to be disappointed. And again, there's been no real change or shift in policy. So, with the same policy, can we get to equal highs? Can we go a little bit higher than the previous highs? Yeah, we probably could. But for us to actually not only get a lot higher, but sustain much, much higher prices, I think we need to have a change in policy, and we still haven't seen it yet. Maybe we get up here and then we find out that QE is going to be restarted. There's going to be massive emergency rate cuts. But what is going to be the catalyst for that is probably going to be the economy getting worse. And that is going to result in, more likely, most likely, stock market falling. Maybe we go into recession, stock market comes down. It usually bottoms before recession. And then that is when we get more stimulus announced. And if that were to happen, then we probably follow a path like this. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a real tricky one, because the saying is that stocks normally bottom before recession. So if we do go into a recession in Q2, or we are, should I say, already in a recession. Obviously, Q1's been reported, but if we get Q2 confirmed as being in a recession, then, well, does that mean that the stock market has bottomed and we're going to go off to all-time highs? If the stimulus comes, maybe it does, in which case this kind of all gets kicked down the road until, who knows, maybe next year. So can we see pumps going into later on in 2026? A recession hits in 2026, but that was basically what we already saw with these drops here. The market has already priced in the recession coming so low. Literally, the S&P losing over, well, it was pretty much bang on 20% going into a bear market. Now, are things about to pump their way out? Because they're saying, well, it's only a matter of time before we get rate cuts, and actually, we'll probably get some resolution on the tariffs soon. And then when the tariffs are in place, and if there's tariff revenue coming in, Donald Trump wants to cut taxes. So does this all happen, and do we see some absolute melt up? And I'm off with my timing by potentially a year. And it's when we get to the point where everything gets so parabolic and so extended, and everybody's just so complacent with their gains and their profits, and their crypto bags are up and their stock bags are back at all-time highs and pushing to new all-time highs. Is that when we kind of go into that winner's curse phase, and the cycle top then is truly, truly in? And it's like all of those bullets, those golden bullets by the Trump administration and the Federal Reserve to pump the markets up, they've all been used. And there's nothing else that can be used to then pump the market without printing more money, which we know is what Donald Trump doesn't want to do. He wants to balance the books. So do we then go through it over the next couple of years when Donald Trump is trying to pump the markets higher? I think still it's more likely it happens now, and then we get that sort of recession and that down move and those bear markets out the way, and we go higher later in Donald Trump's term. But potentially, it turns around a lot quicker. We get a couple of months where the economy's up on absolute, or sorry, a couple of years where things are basically going up only. And then that's the winner's curse phase. And then we move into what is a more prolonged bear market, because the economy and crypto has just got way, way too overheated. So that is probably the least likely scenario I have. Like I say, I'm thinking for Bitcoin, there's two main scenarios, and the main scenario would be either a rejection here and into a bear market this year, or a sort of just a parabolic blow-off move higher over the next couple of months, then into a bear market after that. Or, of course, the third scenario is we just keep on rallying for the rest of this year and the can gets kicked down the road and we go into the bear market next year. So, yeah, no matter what the scenario is, the opportunity cost of missing what would be a final blow off, I'm trying to think. Like, obviously, it would be bad to miss out on that, but I still think at this time in the cycle, it's like, is it going to be a bigger move than all of this? Probably not. So again, it's trying to keep a level head about things, and yeah, it's trying to just not get too carried away with any sort of upwards price action over the next couple of months. Obviously, I will touch upon the stock market. So the stock market for me is coming into what is big, major resistance here. So I am expecting a rejection for stocks, probably the S&P from around this 5,700 level. I do think at some point we come back down towards 5,200. If I put on the actual E-mini futures chart, then you can see we do actually have a gap down here, and this will be on the cash. Of course, this will be on the S&P cash market as well. So that's coming in down towards 5,300. So obviously a move down towards those levels from here is going to be a decent, around about 7% move or so. So maybe it comes down a little lower, but that I think almost certainly happens over the next few weeks. So I'd be on the lookout for stocks, maybe seeing some weakness. If not, going into the close today, then maybe on the close on Monday, Tuesday, by mid next week. I do think we're starting a bit of a correction on the stock market, which has been just on an absolute tear. I mean, just going back to that S&P chart, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9 massive days of upside. And I'm just interested to turn on the Tom DeMark indicator. So on a daily 8, so maybe we get our 9 sell on Monday, and maybe that is then the trigger to look to sort of short this market back down to fill in some of these gaps. So that's the S&P. Obviously, the Nasdaq looking very, very similar, coming into areas of huge resistance, in my opinion. I can also turn on the I want to try and get my indicators, but it's not gonna. Here we go. So we've also got the moving averages as well. So you can see back on towards the 200-day moving average on the Nasdaq, and on the S&P, struggling a little bit with comparison to the Nasdaq, but it's around its 100-day. Obviously, it's through its 50, it's through its 300-day. So yeah, these are areas of big resistance on the stock market, and I am expecting probably a pullback to come. Like I said, if it doesn't come into the close today, maybe early next week. So let's see what happens on the next pullback. Let's see where Bitcoin lies and Bitcoin goes to. But certainly, I am starting to get a little bit more bullish again, just due to this price action. It will be interesting to see if some of this stuff gets invalidated. Like I say, just going back to the longer term stuff here, I wanted to see. So this was the Wall Street cheat sheet. Trying to get my words out. You can tell it's been a long time since I did a video, because it's just very, very weird and uncomfortable for some reason. But this is the Wall Street cheat sheet, and as you can see, we are literally following it to a T. Looks right now like we're beyond euphoria and we're in the complacency phase. So, like I say, I don't really see how euphoria is still left to come. I do think people are very complacent here, expecting much higher prices. I know that the fear and greed has gone back into greed as well. So look, this is a major risk point here. And this was the other one. Obviously, I shared this before, but this is showing the point of maximum financial risk. We are just beyond that. So this is not the time to be allocating huge amounts into the crypto market. And with volumes low, I really don't think that the big players are allocating large amounts into the crypto market. I think this is most likely a squeeze, and most likely we will reject from here. But like I say, if we do push on, I've got to show both sides. If we do push on, if we get up to 100K, if we start holding the key resistance that we're just above right now as support and consolidating, and the stock market keeps on squeezing higher, then yeah, maybe I'll have to say that we have one more pump in this market until it's all said and done. So right now, for me, it's a complete coin toss. I'm 50-50. I know that's not the answer you want. If anything, I'm leaning slightly towards a at least some sort of pullback before either this market screams higher or dumps into the depths of crypto hell. So I will be back probably not before the end of the weekend, but probably next week to see what the weekend did, what the weekly close was, and to see how we're shaping up for the following week. And yeah, the videos are going to be back to the usual schedule with multiple weekly videos from next week. So if you did like this one and you do want to stay tapped into what's going on with crypto, with the stock market, pulling all the macro together, please do hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Smash the like if you've enjoyed this one, and have a wonderful, amazing rest of your day and weekend. And I will talk to you all again on the next one. Bye for now.